Hello, Eric. Great to see you.
Great to see you, Richard, as always.
So, I'm excited to share what's been a long-standing series of conversations between you and me over the course of a few years now with the wider public. So, I really enjoy our conversations that we have, and I find them helpful and informative, and I know you do too, and I think other people will. What do you think?
You know this. I love our weekly conversations. What I have learned over the course of several years, because I've had the honor and the privilege of having 1 hour with you every single week for several years, it really has been enormous. It's changed the way that I think. It's changed the way I am as an investor. Uh, it's really opened my eyes, and I'm deeply appreciative of the time that I've spent with you. Always, you know that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it too. And I'm excited to have other people listen in over our shoulders for a little bit. So anybody that doesn't know Eric, Eric and I have been friends for many years now. Eric's had a long and illustrious career in the public relations sphere, helped resolve the baseball strike back in, I mean, I was a kid back then. So what was that?
So was I. So was I. Power of the press. That's when I realized.
And any other career highlights that you want to share with our audience? Just a brief
Richard,
bio, Eric. Give me
I
60
could talk.
seconds. Come on.
I could talk for hours about my career highlights. I love a lot of the things I do. I got
Yeah.
to change the bottled water industry. I got to change the way legislation worked in this country. I got more people to read bills. I've been very proud of the way that I've been able to use information dissemination to educate people. And one of the things that I've learned from you, which I hope has been the case of my career, is how important it is for everybody to educate themselves and to find information resources that you feel like you can trust. It's a really challenging environment out there now to find information that you can use to make life decisions, in particular what we've talked about a lot, which was financial.
Yeah.
And
So just briefly, how would you say that I have changed your thinking over the years?
well, I don't want to say 360 degrees. I'd say 180 degrees. You've really you've just opened my mind. You've opened my eyes. What I always looked for was the guy who knew, the person who would buy, sell, when do I, everything except take responsibility for it myself, basically. And I've learned that from you. And your entire career, respected as you are, that's what everybody wants you to do. They want you to tell them what to do, which you steadfastly refuse to do. And you really
do my best to refuse.
Oh yeah, you've done a wonderful job. Read all about it for as many years as we've worked with you. But you're right. People need to take control of their own finances, and they need to have their own resources for where they get information. And it's not their stockbroker or a stock picker. If the stockbrokers and the stock pickers were so great, I don't know why they would still be working, and I don't know why anybody just takes that as godsend. You have to learn about the markets yourself.
So a lot of the things we've been talking about over the past few years seem to be coming to a head.
Yes, they do.
A lot in the news over the past week. Did you watch that Age of Easy Money documentary that I sent you?
Yeah, I was so curious. I love the Age of Easy Money. Very digestible, very educational. I think everybody should watch that. Curious what you thought about it.
Well, I was shocked to find it on Frontline, frankly, and on PBS. Clearly, they've been working on it for a while, and I was really impressed. So impressed that I've actually been walking my children through it. We homeschool here, so sat down the other night with 11 to 18-year-olds and said, "All right, I got to talk you all through this." Because I thought it really told the story of where we're at today and kind of how it got started. Back in 2008, it really started to build up a head of steam, but it goes back even further than that. And, we've been basically kicking the can down the road with easy money for 15 plus years now. I have a background in cycles, Foundation for the Study of Cycles being one of my interests. And one of the big cycles is about an 80-year cycle in interest rates. So from World War II going up, for 40 years into the mid 80s or so, and then down for 40 years, 35 years. I think we really should have bottomed in interest rates back in around 2010, 2012. But instead, we got this, crisis management. And one of the things that really struck me about that documentary was how the central banks have become kind of the de facto government because the government is so dysfunctional, because nobody's getting along. Nobody knows how to compromise anymore. We can't get anything done. All we do is fight with each other for sound bites and social media likes. And so the central bank is the only one with the kind of flexibility and liberty, I guess, in some ways, to do things that could actually affect policy. So, you've been involved in government over the years. You know a
Yep.
lot of politicians.
Yep.
And I think, that was one of the biggest takeaways for me is how politics has become so dysfunctional that we can't really affect fiscal policy. So monetary policy is really the only tool we have for crisis management.
Yeah. I mean, it's literally, as you know, why I left. I couldn't stomach where it was going anymore. But that's a sad statement about
It is.
where we are. I mean, the influence of social, digital, and real brick and mortar media now, and everybody trying to ascertain what is the truth, what is the
Yeah.
real story, what are the facts, and then let me decide for myself. Very difficult position for your average person to be in, let alone
Yeah.
invest.
So I think, the metaphor, the image that I have in my mind is like, 2008 comes, we have a genuine crisis, right?
Yes.
And, that happens at the end of cycles. That's that's how cycles change. That's how trends reverse. And instead of, letting that, I'm not saying nothing should have been done, but to try to basically, erase all of it, all the pain, um, instead of letting some of it take its natural course. What we got was, pushing the ball, the inflated ball down below the surface of the pool or the ocean, right? And that's been happening now since 2008, right? So here we are 14 years later, 15 years later, that ball has been held under the surface of the water. So I think that's an important idea for people to understand, that this idea that inflation is now going to just, be, well, they're not using the word transitory anymore, but let's say, it's going to pass in the next year or two, they're going to get it under control. This has been, decades in the making. And the amount of money that's been printed and through outright printing and giving money away versus quantitative easing, et cetera, which they actually explain those concepts pretty well in that documentary. I just think that ball is gonna, pop up above the surface higher than anybody thinks or than most people think. And that the pain that we put off back in 2008 is going to be harder to put up with today. So
Yeah.
that doesn't mean it's the end of the world. It's just a cycle change, but it is something that I've been talking about for a while. It's a sea change. We just don't even know what it means to, manage our money in a rising interest rate and inflationary environment. And I think that people need to really understand the extremes that monetary policy was taken to in order to, put off pain and adjustments that the economy needs to go through.
Is this the greatest extreme ever? I mean,
It
uh,
could be. It
the
could be.
and what you've seen in cycles that we've held back, which means the cycles don't play themselves out naturally. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. So that was just a validation of that thesis of mine, that I've had for a while. and has been really the core of most of my investing decisions lately, which is that, this financialization of everything um, is not sustainable, and it's going to go through a big correction, and we're going to have to get back to, real productivity, real supply chains, um, getting along with each other, uh, figuring out how to get things done as a society and an economy. And so it's just crazy, this level of um, polarization.
Well, but isn't that the thing? And you and I talk about this a lot. Is the politics aside, it's the polarization of almost everything now. I don't think it's
Yes,
ever been like this
absolutely.
before.
No, we live in a bipolar society.
Well, bipolar, or we just don't like each other, so there's no good decisions being made. We're spending all of our time arguing instead of coming up with better solutions than ever in all of history.
Yeah, but that is bipolar. There's another word for it, bimodal,
By
which is
mo
a statistical term. Okay, and
Yeah.
those are essentially what are called fat tail distributions, and that bimodalism is a very powerful economic business model in this media driven, social media driven, politics driven, propaganda driven world that we're living in today, right?
Yeah, definitely. I'm just curious, and I ask you questions like this a lot. I don't want to say it's quizzical because it's interesting to me. Everything about your family is interesting to me, and
Mhm.
your family values. I wish I could do it all again and do it like you. When you sit down with your kids, what's their take from this, or is their take influenced by you?
I was talking to my daughter about it the other day, and she said, "Yeah, I mean," I asked her, how did you like the documentary?" And she said, "Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I can't say I was surprised. It's kind of what I expected."
Mm,
So I thought that was pretty good. I said, "Oh, guess I raised him okay."
Indeed. I'm gonna switch topics here on you. Did you see the New York Magazine article about chatbot?
With Emily Bender.
Yes.
Yes, I thought that was also very important. Somebody else brought that to my attention. So this is related to the ChatGPT, right? And Emily Bender here is a computational linguist at the University of Washington, I think. Um, Incredible article addressing a really important issue, right? Everybody's anthropomorphizing, right? Humanizing this artificial intelligence, this chat GPT, or I mean, chat GPT is just one instance of it. It's what are called large language models. And yeah, that article introduces Emily Bender's, one of her most widely known ideas, the idea of a stochastic parrot. So, what is a stochastic parrot, right? How do these large language models work? So the way that they're really statistical models, right? So you feed in lots of language into these computers, right? Could read all of Wikipedia, let's say, right? Or um, any other, the encyclopedia, whatever, all of the correspondence on the internet. I don't know exactly what the sources are, but it reads in language and it builds statistical models to predict, what the next word in a communication should be. It's literally like word by word. So stochastic means random, and parrot means, you're just repeating what you've been fed. So these large language models, that idea of a stochastic parrot is a really powerful metaphor for how they work. The
Yeah.
kicker, though, is that Sam Altman, who's the founder of OpenAI, which is the group that created ChatGPT. When he launched this technology, he said via a tweet, I believe, "I'm a stochastic parrot, and so are you."
Well, I mean, uh, Emily Bender, who wrote that piece, she's clearly worried, justifiably so.
Absolutely. I mean, if ever anyone was talking their own book when they said, "I'm a stochastic parrot and so are you," right? It's Sam Altman. So all of these companies that are benefiting from artificial intelligence, that are developing it, that have a business interest in it, right, have a lot to benefit from the idea that these machines, these statistical models, are going to replace human beings, that they're essentially, better than human beings, which is absolutely insane. I'm not saying that they won't perform some functions that human beings have performed over the years, and will put a significant number of white collar workers out of jobs. I do think that this technology is a revolutionary technology, akin to the personal computer and the internet itself. But the idea that I'm a stochastic parrot and so are you, that we human beings are essentially just statistical models that have been absorbing the information of the universe and forming our own statistical models and just regurgitating, all that input in a statistical way, is a very dangerous idea of what it means to be a human being.
Yeah.
It opens up all kinds of crazy, legal and moral questions that people need to really not gloss over.
Yeah. Um, uh, Curious, your recent, I would say, positive experience with ChatGPT. Can you share a little bit about that with us?
Well, I mean, I've started to use it myself. Again, it's like a research assistant. If you use it the right way, and we're all learning how to use it right now, you can access information and it can pull together information for you in some quite novel, shocking, extraordinary ways. It can also make glaring errors that it will present to you with, great confidence. So you can't just take it at face value. But in terms of the way that it can kind of pull information together and present it to us in a natural language conversation is really something. So
So,
I've been using it, in my own investing, for example. I said to ChatGPT, "Hey, I'm really concerned about inflation. My thesis is that it's going to be worse than anybody imagines, or than most people imagine. And I'd like to know what are some good inflation resistant ideas, out there." And it said, let me go find it. Actually, I'll pull it up here. Could even share my screen. What should I invest in if I believe that inflation is going to be higher longer than most people think and that the Federal Reserve is losing its credibility? You should consider investing in assets that can help protect against inflation, such as commodities like gold, silver, oil, real estate, stocks of companies that tend to perform well during inflationary periods, energy, materials, consumer staples, etc. And then, some caveats. Good basic advice. Thanks. What's the best way to build a diversified portfolio of inflation-resistant assets? Well, determine your investment goals and risk tolerance. Before investing, it's essential to understand your investment goals and the level of risk you're willing to take. Where have I heard that before? Consider investing in real assets again. Invest in stocks of companies that'll perform well during inflationary periods. I tried to get it to build a portfolio for me, and I had to push it a little bit because it was resisting. right? Here I say, I accept that you're not providing me financial advice and that I'm making my own decisions. I just like to see you build a diversified portfolio of inflation resistant assets using ETFs. What ETFs would you use and how would you allocate to the ETFs? So it came up with 5 ETFs. DBC, it's a commodity index. Real estate trust, IYR, GLD, the gold, inflation protected bonds, and global materials ETF, MXI, and it allocated 20% to each of them, an even allocation across those 5 ETFs that are all inflation resistant assets. So look, this is pretty interesting. It's not going to overthrow, the advisory industry at this point, but I think it's I thought it was pretty interesting. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I was just gonna. From you, my guru in all of this. I'm so curious. What kind of what that looks like? Really good information.
Yeah.
Well, resist taking too much of it. Like you say, it's not going to overthrow the financial, you know, advisors. I'm sure they're worrying about that, or some of them are. How much,
Yeah.
like, of all your information resources, of all the things that you research in the course of the week throughout a day, how valuable was the information that you just got from that technology?
I wouldn't say it was immensely valuable yet, but I think it points to that it's um you can go a lot deeper and there's a really big opportunity there to use this technology to assist in one's own research. And I think, it's the technology is going to improve very quickly. Um, there's all kinds of other data sources that are going to get integrated into it. Private companies will start to use it to enhance their own productivity. So, it really is a remarkable technology. I was talking to a friend of mine who came up with a good metaphor, I thought, for understanding what this is. And he said, I think this is a lot like what Henry Ford did for manufacturing, kind of the industrialization of manufacturing in the assembly line. And this is actually the industrialization of ideas.
Mm.
And, at one level, that's a very disturbing idea, right? That ideas can be industrialized. And it should be a disturbing idea. It is a disturbing idea.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we all like our cars.
Yes, we do.
And, there have been tremendous benefits from industrialization. And so I do think that, you know, I mean, all of these new technologies are double-edged swords, right?
Yeah.
Gunpowder, the printing press, the internet, whatever you want to look at throughout history, it's a double-edged sword, and I do think it's going to be incredibly disruptive. I do think it's going to upend a lot of white collar jobs, especially kind of junior analyst level jobs. And, um, but at the same time, I think it's going to open up a lot of new opportunities, a lot of new innovations. I think for the average investor to have a research tool like this that you can essentially kind of talk to, an educated research assistant, you got to know how to ask the right questions and frame them in the right way. But I think, it opens up a lot of opportunities for individuals to work more effectively with knowledge.
So
I
that's
just don't think that knowledge is the sum total of what it means to be a human being.
yeah. So and our last topic, I'm curious if you saw the any of the testimony last week of the CEOs on TikTok and your perspective in general.
I didn't think it went very well for the CEO of TikTok. And, I didn't think he did that good a job. I thought he came off as a bit pushy and arrogant and kind of cocky, which wasn't a good look for that audience. But what was even more shocking was to see actual bipartisan, opposition, see actual bipartisanship,
Oh
right?
yeah, finally something we can agree on.
And, these are thorny issues, but I just see things dividing more and more between the US and China. I see China seeking a kind of multipolar world. And obviously, if we ban TikTok, they're going to ban something on their side. But I don't want to use TikTok. I don't want my kids using TikTok. And I am concerned about the Chinese government having access to data on American citizens. And I don't, along with Congress, I don't trust TikTok and the Chinese Communist Party to, you know, be, Scouts honor there.
Yeah, well,
So,
the bipartisan issue, which is it's hard. It's to me that just smacked me in between the eyes because I haven't seen this in so long.
mhm, yeah,
Watching, a joint session where everybody's agreeing. It's
right. That was
but
the biggest shock of all.
yes, it was. But all of that. I mean, we can't agree on anything for a very long time now. But for all of our agreement, uh, if you had to project, what do you, I mean? I know what you would like to see happen, but what do you think will happen? Or is that like asking you for a
I
stop?
think it's going to get banned.
You do?
I do. Yeah.
Interesting.
Doesn't
And
mean people won't use it, but it'll get banned from government. And I think we're going to end up with two internets.
yeah, I mean,
That's my prediction.
I mean, all of the social mediums and the history of the social mediums, it's not that long. I mean, it wasn't like they were teaching history of social media, when we were kids. It didn't exist. And people may or may not remember 20 years ago, Facebook and MySpace, neck and neck. Has anybody ever heard of MySpace anymore? Facebook
A few
prevailed.
people have still.
Yeah, a few, yeah, a few. Will TikTok be the next, social medium to fall? Is I think the question, and what will replace it? Because TikTok to me seems like the worst of the worst.
I think it is the worst of the worst. That level of addiction and scrolling. I think the average video watching time is like 6 seconds, right? Before you jump to the next one. And, getting back to the age of easy money and the predicament that we find ourselves in today of everybody just spending their time online and not working together to, grow our economy and our society and, learn to live with each other, is something I'm okay with seeing, get diminished.
Okay, I think we're going to wrap it up for our first week.
All
I
right.
enjoy these conversations every week. I am so lucky that I get to have them one-on-one with you. I should pay you. I've always told you that just for the insights.
I enjoy it
We'll
too
spend
and
some
look forward to
free.
talking again next week.
Likewise.